The gentleman from Rhode Island, the author of the bill, Mr. Cicilline, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses for being here and for your really inspiring and very powerful testimony. Thank you, Chairman Nadler, for calling this hearing and for your outspoken and unwavering support of the Equality Act from the very first moment we began to discuss it nearly 5 years ago. This bill is bipartisan and now has 240 co-sponsors, including 3 Republicans. As we consider H.R. 5 here in the House, I can't help but think of the upcoming 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riot just a few weeks from now. Just 50 years ago, the patrons of Stonewall Inn in New York, one of the few places of refuge for the marginalized and criminalized LGBT community, were targeted, beaten, harassed, and arrested simply for being willing to live their true lives. That riot 50 years ago in what is now Mr. Nadler's district sparked the modern LGBT rights movement that has ushered in extraordinary achievements in our fight for equality. As a young man, I never could have dreamed that I would be the first openly gay mayor of a capital city in America, or that I would be able to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives openly and not afraid to be my authentic self. This path was made possible by activists like Harvey Milk, Bayard Rustin, Barbara Gittings, and Audre Lorde, to name just a few. And in the political world, the trail was blazed by many, including our former colleagues and my friends Barney Frank, Tammy Baldwin, Jim Colby, who is here today, and many others. And today I'm proud that we have the greatest number of individuals from the LGBTQ community in the House of Representatives in U.S. history, with 8 openly lesbian, gay, and bisexual members. I want to acknowledge and thank my LGBT Equality Caucus co-chairs who have supported my efforts on this bill: Mark Pocan, Mark Takano, Sean Patrick Maloney, Angie Craig, Chris Pappas, Sharice Davids, and Katie Hill, all trailblazers in their own right. It's important to me that young people now have the example of a diverse group of LGBT lawmakers, not just on the federal level, but across government at the state and local level. We introduced the Equality Act because we don't think it's right that members of our community are still told that they can't go to school, live where they want to live, work in their chosen field, access health care or housing. It's simply not right, and it undermines core founding values of this great country of fairness and equality. And I want to be clear that when someone votes against this bill or questions why LGBT people should have the same rights as everyone else, they're telling me that my rights and the rights of my community don't matter as much as their own comfort. Now is the time for legal discrimination against an entire community of Americans to end. Speaker Pelosi has been an extraordinary and great champion for our community and a bulwark of support for this bill, as are our Majority Leader Steny Hoyer and Whip Jim Clyburn, and our esteemed colleague and civil rights icon John Lewis. On the Senate side, we've worked in tandem with the Senate lead, Senator Merkley, Tammy Baldwin, and Cory Booker, and I couldn't be prouder to have partnered with them in this effort. As you all know, no major piece of legislation is possible without the support and advocacy of a cavalcade of experts, advocates, and allies. And I want to take a moment to thank the groups who have been so instrumental in getting this legislation drafted and introduced with such a strong showing of support. The Human Rights Campaign, and I know Chad Griffin is with us today, the president, the ACLU, the National Women's Law Center, the Center for American Progress, the National Center for Transgender Equality, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the National Black Justice Coalition, the National Center for Lesbian Rights, the National LGBTQ Task Force, Lambda Legal, Family Equality Council, the National Partnership for Women and Families, the Transgender Law Center, Freedom for All Americans, SAGE, PFLAG, the NAACP, the Urban League, and many, many others. I'd also like to mention that we have widespread support in the business community from companies of all sizes all across the country. Additionally, we have the support of labor groups, trade associations, such as the National Association of Manufacturing and even the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter this list of 330 organizations and 180 companies who have endorsed the Equality Act into the record as well. We have such widespread support because businesses know that their employees thrive when they are free from harassment, when they're able to visit doctors, take their children to school, and live freely. I should note that this bill does not only provide protections for the LGBT community, we also add protections in areas of civil rights law that weren't previously in place. We expand the list of public accommodation protections in the civil rights area so that there will be recourse for people who are harassed for shopping for the color of their skin or flying because of their perceived religion. This bill will target one of the root causes of poverty, marginalization, and alienation of many in the LGBT community in this country. For example, LGBT people are more likely to live in poverty, and LGBT people of color experience some of the highest rates of poverty of any group in the United States. This can be directly attributed to the discrimination in employment, housing, and other areas that make it more difficult for people to maintain a job and earn a living wage. The Equality Act seeks to level the legal playing field so that all Americans have a chance to thrive. It's vital for Congress to be clear that sexual orientation and gender identity are protected under the law, and individuals cannot be discriminated against on this basis. But of course, any bill that expands civil rights must never retreat from our commitment to the progress that we've made, and it's vital and very important that we first do no harm. So, Mr. Chairman, under our proposal, the very same protections that exist for other minorities in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 will protect the rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people all across America. We're asking for no more and no less. And as my great friend and colleague, Congressman John Lewis, told me when we began this work on the bill, the time is now. I thank you, and I yield back.